living in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. Then an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory shone around them. And they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. For see, I am bringing you good news of great joy for all the people. To you is born this day in the city of David a Saviour, who is a Messiah, the Lord. And this will be a sign for you. You will find him wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger." When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let us go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has taken place." So they went with haste, and they found Mary and Joseph and the child lying in the manger.
Shepherds are people that herd sheep and care for them and watch over them. Priests are often known as shepherds, and bishops as chief shepherds, of course, who carry a special stick with them, known as a crozier or a bishop's staff. And that's rather like the stick that the shepherds carry with a hook on it, where the shepherds would hook the sheep when they were running away or being naughty. And we all look back, as I've been saying in this series, about what we've done in the past and where we've been. And I remember one occasion thinking about bishops' staffs many years ago, when the bishop came for confirmation in a parish of mine, and we'd gone to the altar and the bishop was preparing the altar. But before he did that, he put his bishop's stick on the altar and he took his mitre off, and he also placed that on the altar, standing up like a tea cosy. And I looked at him and he said, "Are you all right, Father Andrew?" And I said, "Well, no, I'm not really." And this is all during the hymn, the offertory hymn. And he said, "Well, whatever's wrong?" And I said, "Well, when you're at home, do you put your hat and gloves on the dinner table?" And he said, "Well, no." And I said, "Well, please take your stick and hat off God's table." And he always remembered that. And he used to pull my leg about it every time I saw him. The things that we remember. But anyway, back to shepherds. And of course, priests are known as shepherds over people in parishes. And I'm not sure I like the description of the early shepherds, who were very uneducated, dirty, and the great unwashed, as it were. But for today's meditation, we're thinking of shepherds in this third week of Advent. Shepherds out in the hills watching over their sheep, and who were always glad when the daylight arrived each morning, and finding out that all their sheep had survived another night and were safe. I should imagine the night would have been exceedingly difficult for shepherds and extremely dangerous for the sheep who often wandered off or who were open to attack by predators. On the occasion we heard about in our reading today, instead of the usual daylight of morning, the shepherds saw something totally unexpected. A sky full of angels singing the praises of God and the Saviour who had just been born. Their normal night was turned into something extraordinary, and a night they would never forget. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not a great sleeper. In fact, in my college days, like a lot of my student colleagues, I would often study at night. And I guess that's why I find getting up very early each day a time to get on with things that I need attending to. You will find that if you get an email from me, it is often quite early in the morning, although I do promise I will not phone you at 5 a.m. But the shepherds were on night and day duty, and so being alert all of the time, must have been very challenging. For the shepherds who were out in the fields near Bethlehem, they must have had the most amazing wake-up call when the sky was suddenly full of angels singing praises of God and the Saviour who'd been born. Their night had been turned into something extraordinary, and it was something far better than even the daylight hours. I know for a fact there are many people who have felt and still feel that the night and darkness of their lives over the last few months will last forever. COVID has changed people's lives to the extent that some feel that they will never go out into daylight again and breathe the air and interact with the bird's song and a regular conversation with another human being. And that is far worse than not being able to sleep at night. The darkness of the last few months have overcome some people, and many are waiting. Yes, they're waiting for the light that will set them free. And sometimes amazing things happened, and sometimes amazing people, by their own example, show us the light. We don't see these things happen very often, but when we do, we know it. And those things may come in a vaccine for COVID, and answer to prayer, or maybe for the recovery of a loved one who has been ill, and many other things. It may even be a smile or a hug from someone. I know we can't do that at the moment, but that often means the world to some people who are so alone most of the time. And God sometimes breaks into our days and we're awestruck. I remember a few years ago I was in Africa and visiting one of the many friends that I had there, and we decided to have a few days on a game reserve. I had always wanted to camp overnight in the bush and to experience the natural beauty of a place that was protected from humankind and where creatures of all kinds lived side by side for better or worse in relative safety. And I remember we were out on a drive spotting game and stopped near the end of the day to climb a huge rock for the view at sundown. And there I had the most unexpected experience of my life and was reminded so clearly that mankind is no God compared to the vastness and beauty of the created world. And as the sun set over the African bush, as a huge ball of fire of creation fell on its knees, the whole bush that had been an amazing cacophony of sound and species suddenly ceased, and there was a silence like no other, as if everything had bowed to the command to stop, listen, rest and sleep. You could have actually heard a pin drop, I guess. But I needed that experience to bring me back into check and to know that God is ultimately in charge. And whatever happens in our topsy-turvy world, he will not abandon us. God is always at work, even when we don't always see it. God probably isn't going to send tons of angels to sing the good news like he did to the shepherds when Jesus was born. But as we go through our normal days, waiting for it all to be over, make sure to also be on the lookout for God to do something. He always will.
Oh,